Chair Schmier.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Historic Review Board meeting for September 12th, 2024. My wife's birthday, by the way. I hope you all sent a gift today. They haven't arrived, but I haven't gone down to check the mailbox yet. So, yes, we have a quorum. Thank you all for coming. Rick and Paul and Pam and Howard's even here. Howard, can you hear us? Yeah, that's a thumbs up. He can hear us and Megan. All righty. Well, I think you may as well get her started, Joy. You've got a lot to talk about. But you're muted, Joy.
Yes.
There
I
you
am.
Okay.
And it appears that the applicant has just arrived, which is great, or the applicant's representative.
Yes.
So I will get started with a presentation that summarizes the staff report. Then Brennan, you'll have an opportunity to add anything. We did receive the modifications that you proposed and provided today, and I did send those out and have incorporated them into my presentation so everyone can see the original and the modification.
Okay, thank you.
And so we'll go ahead and get started so that we can get to all of our things tonight.
go. All righty.
So tonight, the land use application that the Historic Review Board is considering is file Z0322-24. You may have saw that this is one of two applications that the applicant has in our department. One is for a replacement dwelling in the exclusive farm use zone, and one is for the new construction on a historic landmark. They are for the same structure, but they are looking at different pieces of our zoning code. And tonight, as the Historic Review Board, you all are reviewing the proposed home in conjunction with ZDO 707. So a little bit of background. The property is just north of the intersection of South Cracksburger Road and South Highway 170. There is a complex of historic structures here that were all part of the Lone Elder Flax plant. And Brennan identified that Reading may be a misspelling. It may have a W and it may not. And I don't know if the W is the historic spelling. You know how words can change through time. And so I have stuck with W throughout my presentation and staff report because that is how it is in the historic landmark designating application. The Reading tank is this structure here that is on the subject property. I have included the structure adjacent to it in this picture because it is also part of the Lone Elder Flax plant. The buildings associated with the Lone Elder Flax plant were a variety of buildings that all have different references in SHPO and all have different architectural features as well as importance for the historic site. What I want to make note of the structure that we are looking at on the subject property is that it had no significant architectural features. and the historic significance that led to it being designated as a historic landmark is due to the significance of association with the flax industry and the New Deal programs of the 1930s. You may have seen in the designating land use file that was sent to you all that the roof was put on in 1980. So the roof on the Reading tank of the subject property is not historic. And there is no indication that there was a roof, that it was a replacement roof in 1980. It sounded like it was a new roof. And so the pitch of the roof may be different than what it was as a Reading tank, or it may not have had a roof as a Reading tank as part of the Lone Elder Flax complex. The structure next to it in the aerial images show the vertical siding and the steep roof and the historic characters that I would think of as a historic structure. The one on the subject property is noted as a cement structure with sheet metal. The historic landmark for the Lone Elder Flax Plant Complex goes over 3 different properties and encompasses several different structures. There is a map of the whole complex in the designating land use file that identifies the subject property here at the top. And it shows the 1950s non-historic house. Now, 1950s could be historic, but it's not from the period of significance with the WPO 1930s programs and the Lone Elder flax plant. By 1955, this whole complex was dwindling in importance from an economic standpoint. The warehouses down here, I am not sure if the warehouses we see in the aerial images are the same ones. The ones in the aerial image look new. And so, but they are outside of the historic landmark. And so today, the subject property has one piece of a historic landmark that covers multiple properties and has multiple contributing features. And the house that is being replaced through Z022-24 is not a contributing feature to this complex of buildings. You all received the 2007 inventory that included this image of the Reading tank building, which does not look like it looks now, but has been there a while and is still there. And because it's the significance of the site and not architectural features, it has a unique place as we consider changes to the property. I'm getting feedback. Whenever I talk, I feel like I hear myself through other people's computers. So I apologize about the stuttering.
If everybody could mute, maybe that would help.
It looks like Pam is getting headphones. So.
No, getting a charger for my phone.
Oh. I muted you, Pam, because I think it was the echoing in your computer. So when you want to talk, feel free to unmute yourself. Oh. As you all considered a new structure on a historic landmark during your meeting last month, you're familiar with this zoning code. And one of the features that we're looking at is the design of the proposed structure compatible with the design of the landmark buildings on the site or in the district or the corridor? So similar to the last situation, this is not in a designated historic district. However, there are multiple buildings in the Lone Elder Flax complex that are designated, and the historic landmark boundaries are larger than just the subject property. That's why considering this adjacent structure is just as important as considering the historic structure on the subject property. So as you look at these historic structures and the proposed home, you're looking at whether the scale, the style, the height, and the architectural detail, materials, or colors are compatible with the historic landmark buildings. It's a little bit odd in the situation since the Reading tank on the site does not have architectural features that were deemed significant. But is the proposed design compatible? I mentioned that the applicant provided a modified plan. The windows were modified, as well as the posts in the overhangs of the porches. So looking south towards the other pieces of the Lone Elder Flax plant complex, the top image is what you would see. The north elevation, which is adjacent to a manufactured home, and property that is described in the designating land use file as vacant, is the north elevation. And then the east elevation might be seen from the historic Reading tank, and then the public road view is this lower west elevation. So from the road, you would be seeing the side of the house that has this extended porch. It is a single family home. So when I review building permits and permits for structures, I want to make sure that what is being proposed is an allowed use in the zoning district. And that may not be something that you think about, but as you consider this single family home, there was a floor plan provided in the application for you to look at. As with the application last month, the orientation of the new structure, whether it's a typical location and orientation to similar structures on the site or within the vicinity, location of entrances and similar siting characteristics. The applicant did propose to remove the 2 large maple trees and exchange it with a row of maple shrubs along the road. And there was no commercial use proposed. So when we look at the stretch of road on either side of the existing structure and the historic Reading tank, you'll see homes that have similar orientation to what is being proposed. The little overhang over a door, the long axis of the home being parallel to Highway 170. Those seemed consistent with my review of the adjacent properties as far as orientation goes. With looking at all of the criteria in the proposal, I found that it was consistent and would recommend approval, and look forward to hearing from the applicant and then the discussion from the Historic Review Board.
Apologies if you can't hear me too well. Not super familiar with the Zoom platform, but so hopefully you can all hear me. If not, just let me know.
We can hear you well.
Okay, cool. First of all, thank you for having me. Basically, this project's fairly straightforward. It's just an effort to replace what's there. It's this old, dilapidated home. The property itself is in need of a lot of rehab itself. And so this is kind of the idea, is just try to revive it and kind of bring it back to perhaps what it once was at some point in the past. The homeowner was quite strict with what they were wanting or what their expectations were for the design of the building. Upon our initial meetings, when I informed them of the historic landmark overlay for this project and what this process would look like, I had made some proposals that I thought were more in line with what I saw in the area. And I'm quite familiar with the area because my father actually lives off of Maxburg Road. And so I drive there frequently. I'm driving by the Lone Elder store on quite a frequent basis. And so I kind of did my research as I would make those drives every other weekend or so. And so I made some initial proposals that I thought were more in line with homes that I saw in the area or within that historic corridor. But ultimately, the homeowner basically wasn't content or happy with some of those proposals. And we ultimately kind of ended up with what you see here today. And it's kind of that craftsman style home. And I did my best to sort of try to, stick in line with Joy's recommendations. And yeah, I just hope that everything is to your expectations and what you hope to see today.
Well, thanks, Brennan. Does anybody from the review board have any comments on at this juncture about the application? Paul?
My hope is that an in-period 1930, 1940 craftsman design house, if this is quite a distance away from that design that we've seen historically all around Oregon and Clackamas County, and how the porch works and looks is like the V shape on that is holding up the front porch and the interior stuff. That's kind of stuff that you would not see in a craftsman, but much of what a craftsman house looks like, and what I assume that you're the person that owns the property and wants to build a house just doesn't want really a craftsman and wants something modern. And that's the problem area is when we go modern, we're detracting from period design. And I'm appreciative to see how you change the windows around to what are historically craftsman type designs, it's a step, but it's kind of like you moved 1 inch out of 10 feet, and I appreciate the significance of even moving 1 inch, but I think that the porch itself needs significant rework. It's not like that you have to change the interior plan. Okay, but if you had a craftsman style porch, with the same interior design, I can look past the garages, the integrated garages on the building because they're hidden around the back. Okay, to me, still, it's kind of like cumulatively, I'm concerned that the accumulation of things make it difficult. And I'm just wondering if there is any room in your part and that of the owner to try to make some improvements in the design to make it look like a 1940, 50, 60 craftsman.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm assuming that it's primarily due to the vault or that stick framed style porch and not having that enclosed kind of trussed look.
It's one of those things that where it just deviates 180 degrees from a craftsman.
Okay, so it would be preferential to see essentially just a gable end truss or just a picket style truss that just has the finish on it, the siding.
But something that has that appearance of an in period 1930, 40, 50 craftsman. And what you're proposing there is so modern. It's even all of the big windows over the top that you hope could be retained. Those are some of the things, it's kind of like interior. I'm not worried about whatsoever. The cube, but it's what people see, and if it, to where it does not detract from that period. And if it was called something other than a craftsman, and this is not a craftsman, that's my problem. Part of it is semantics, and I would hope that we could have something that if it's going to be a craftsman, let's have some craftsman features.
Okay. So would a good start be not carrying that vault from the interior to the exterior?
Probably, but I know how a craftsman, I would give you some latitude to design something that would come back, and I would love to see a continuance where you quickly come up with a design that the homeowner and you and somebody could come up with and say, okay, we're going to make something that looks Imperial. That's all.
Okay, understood.
Are there any other comments?
I have a question. Is the designation of this historic corridor, does it have a time period associated with it?
The Reading tank on the subject property was built in 1936.
Sure.
The significance of the Lone Elder Flax plant, I believe, was from the 1920s to 1955 when it ended or closed due to nylon.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the historic site survey, but the historic overlay, the corridor overlay, is it attached to a certain time period? I'm trying to get to the source of why is Craftsman era associated to the property? Is it because the Reading tank is from the 30s and flax was at its peak during that time, or is there an actual time period that is in the constraint? I didn't see anything outlined in the paperwork.
There was nothing outlined in my thinking. Brennan suggested or proposed a craftsman as you originally saw. And so the craftsman style was not anything that was required for this property.
Okay, thank you.
It could well have been a vernacular, and in that era, in that period, and in something even with a higher pitch roof, much like the neighboring flax building, maybe 1212 or something like that, and still accomplish much. But if we're going to go vernacular, then let's go vernacular. If we're gonna go craftsman, let's go craftsman. But let's try to have it, have a non-detracting imagery from the period that was of importance that that the district was set up for.
Rick,
I have a couple comments. First of all, I was delighted to see the changes today because my first comment was going to be, I hope the owner knows they're not getting a craftsman with the original design. I do I do see that the changes are working very hard towards making it a craftsman bungalow versus an actual craftsman residence. I do agree with Paul with the roof pitch. If it were me and I was making some suggestions to the owner, I would look at the windows again, not necessarily size of windows, but type of window to the craftsman period, and also more trim around the windows. I also don't feel that the railing on the porch, especially the big porch, is scaled properly to the new stone foundations for the columns. The new columns are great. You're getting there, but there are still a couple other small features that if I had the opportunity, I would ask that people look at, because I don't think they'd be that much more expensive. But they're going for a craftsman bungalow. They're getting a lot closer. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that, yes, the craftsman is within the period of the flax processing plant. And it was very interesting researching the flax processing for this one. So thank you very much for that. I don't disagree necessarily with the staff report. But I also agree with Paul that some small changes here I think would get more towards what the owner's strict ideas are. So thank you.
okay, thank you, Pam. Now, Rick, did you have some comments?
Yeah, Pam kind of touched on it, but I was kind of curious about the railing also in the front there. When I first glanced at the picture from kind of far away, it looked like, oh my goodness, they're putting in wrought iron fence across the front there. So I'm just kind of curious what that front railing is made out of.
And that's to Brennan.
Right now, it is a metal product, but probably will ultimately end up being a wood product.
Okay. It just I kind of, like I said, my first thought was like, oh, here's wrought iron fence across between the posts. So anyway, that was my thought. And then you've all touched on my other question. So
my concern or my question is that going back to the staff report, Joy, did you or did you not state that in staff's opinion, the house is not a contributing? What's the
It
term?
is not contributing to the historic significance of the landmark on this property.
Right, so in actual in actual terms of the ordinance, you really don't have the authority to dictate what style the owner wants to build. Is that correct?
I had a hard time requiring a certain pitch of roof or a certain type of material or a certain type of window because the historically significant structure on the subject property was designated due to the historic association and not due to architectural features. And because the historic resource on the subject property doesn't have significant architectural features, there was nothing that staff saw that had to match.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm coming from too. If you interpret the ordinance, I can't think of the right word right now, literally, I guess. We can ask the owner to reconsider the architectural design features, but I don't know that in the long run we can dictate or force the owner to do that. So I hear Paul and I hear Pam comments, and I kind of agree that it looks pretty modern considering the age of the historic flax house, but rendering plant, but it I don't know if we'd get into trouble trying to dictate.
If there was something that you found in the design that was detracting, like say the railing, if that metal railing was really detracting from the historic vibe of the property, you guys could say change it to a wooden railing. And you could say it needs to be 4 feet high with posts that are 2.5 feet or 2.5 inches wide, and it would be more in line with the craftsman style home that the applicant represented their proposal to be. However, if the metal railing is not detracting from the historic redding tank or the historic warehouse next door, then it would need to remain. And the question is, when you're driving by on Highway 170, what are you going to see of the structure? And what are you going to see next to the historic warehouse and the historic redding tank as you're driving by? Are you going to see that railing? If it's detracting, then you probably would, right? If it's if the scale is out of if it was a 4-story home with stucco on all sides and a giant swimming pool in the front yard, that would definitely be detracting. And so think about, as you consider this proposal, is the scale correct? Is it compatible with the historic resource? I don't know that the very fine details could be supported by the code, because the fine details are not what designated these structures as historic landmarks, but it's something for you all to discuss and direct staff towards.
Paul,
If at this point, I would like to just say it's the designated industry of that period that that was trying to, or there was an effort to try to protect and let people understand what happened in the New Deal efforts of and during that period. But to me, in Joy, in what you said, it's about that this comes across as basically an ultra modern house. And it has so little of in that period of from 30, 40, 50, 60, that the gross part of the design not having anything there, then it becomes a detracting element to something that we're talking about history with of a period. And so by altering, it's like when Pam said, trimming out the windows correctly and having them look and have craftsman style uh, uh, parts of the windowing that's done. A lot of the craftsman windows had across the top of them had little windows that were part of craftsman design. But if I went vernacular, I could then go with tall and narrow windows and with a lot of trim and around them, and aprons and things like that below the windows is something to set them off or to be designed to show design elements. But then you get to the porch, and part of it's the porch and trying to have a porch that is either vernacular, and the porch as is more vernacular than it is craftsman. And so it's kind of like I'm mixing and matching, and I would love to see it go one way or the other. And that's the reason why I think if we have the creativity of the designer and the people working with there to come up with something, and we give them another shot to say, we love what you did with the windows. Now let's take a chance and see if you could come back in 30 days with something that's that really does something. And it's just, it's that I care, and I'm hoping we can have a design, some designs that are represent history, and then we're win-win, and that's all I'm trying to achieve and discussing this and my comments that I've made. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else have any comments right at the moment?
Yeah, I just want to clear up that I did say I don't disagree with the staff report. But the owner's representative here tonight said the owner had some strict ideas that they wanted. So I was trying to provide some opportunities that could help.
Okay. Well, my impression, I know next to nothing about architecture per se. I'm a historian, not an architect. But my impression is, from what I've seen thus far, is that whether or not you interpret the ordinance literally, ZDO 707 literally or not, my impression is that the proposed design is detracting from the as Joy put it, the vibe or the style, the era in which the historic landmark was designated. So I would think that even though I'm sure the homeowner wants a nice modern house, I'm sure that there is a opportunity in there somewhere to have a nice modern house interior with a little more historic looking craftsman, maybe exterior. We don't care about the interior. What we care about is how the impression of it as you drive by. So I would think there'd be some opportunity to design something that would look a little more historic on the outside and still provide all the modern amenities for the homeowners on the inside. Any other comments? Nobody's saying anything. Howard hasn't said anything. I'm not sure Howard can. Okay,
Howard, there's always a phone number on the Historic Review Board webpage where you can call in if the computer access is not working.
Megan, have you got any comments?
I don't have any additional ones.
Okay. Oh, is that Howard?
So
trying-
it sounds like some of the detracting nature of the structure is that it's not specifically craftsman and not specifically vernacular, and that it's mixing designs? Is that what I'm hearing from Pam and Paul and Megan and those that have the specialty in architecture? Rick? Yeah? Is it the railing?
The railing is one element.
Okay,
It literally, it should be wood and wood specific. Again, it's all, if I have a craftsman house, I'm gonna have a wood railing. Okay, and so it's like I'm doing incrementally those things which are associated with that design. And the window treatment of a craftsman window are really distinctive. And if we would take a look at a craftsman, and there's plenty of them, we could drive around. I could drive with you around and show. We could look at them and say, okay, here's one, and here's what they look like, or you can go to a design book and just take a look at what they show. But if we're going to go one way, try to stay that way. And then I would come back with the windows, the way the trim was, the way the railing is, the design of the porch, the roof of it, how you put it. And a lot of the craftsmen have that little upper roof, which kind of like a dormer that's across the top over there, and that's synonymous with the craftsman designs. And again, if we're kind of flipping that, if that's what it is, I would just, this is the reason why I would love to have just a continuous, and I would move for a continuance to have it revisited and come back with us and the next the earliest date that you could set up, Joy.
Was that a motion I heard?
Yes,
Would you repeat it, please?
I would move for a continuance for 30 days or the nearest time that would be acceptable by Joy, where the designer could take and review what could be done in elements to make this more historically compatible for the period.
Could I ask a question really fast?
First of all, can we get is anybody going to second it?
I want to hear what Brennan has to say.
Sorry to interrupt, but just taking notes here. Sounds like certain elements that need to be removed from this design would be those angular windows up in that gable end wall. Would that be a good start? Just
Part of it, yeah.
okay. And then you mentioned a dormer. Are you referring to a shed dormer? Kind of just a continuous dormer across?
You will see them in the craftsman design houses. They've had little shed dormers synonymous with the Imperial.
Okay, so probably try to incorporate some sort of shed dormer into that design, not like a gable end dormer or any other style. Okay.
No, it's if you say craftsman, it's Duke craftsman.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion about the motion on the table?
I have a counter motion, so I don't know how to approach that.
Say that again, Megan.
I just said I have a counter motion, so I don't know if we need to vote on this first motion.
Well, nobody seconded the motion, so I guess we can hear your counter motion.
It
Troy?
looks like Howard may have seconded it with a thumb raise. Was that what you were indicating, Howard?
That looked like an okay signal. Was that a second to the motion, Howard? I guess that was a second to the motion. Okay, we.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah,
Just going back to the design of the building.
Brennan, we don't know what you're gonna need to do until
Okay.
we know if everyone is on board with Paul's motion. So
Okay,
let's
sorry,
finish.
sorry.
Let's
Okay.
finish and see if everyone agrees or what an alternative motion might be.
okay, we have the motion from Paul and we have it seconded from Howard Post via an okay sign on the screen. Let's have a vote. Those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? It looks like it failed.
It's split.
Okay.
3 ayes and 3 noes. Can we hear Megan's alternative proposal and see what that might be?
I just move that we accept the staff recommendations and approve as designed. I don't see that we have necessarily need to have any input on the design of the house because it does not detract from the historic landmark. And it is an improvement from the dilapidated structure that's there now. If it, as we discussed last month, if it was a historic neighborhood with historic buildings all around, then I would have a much stronger opinion on the design of the home, but I don't see it. I feel like it's apples and oranges to the historic landmark designation for the site.
Good. Do I hear a second to that motion? Well, I'll second the motion and then we can vote on that. So.
Ugh. You
Megan,
guys are making this tough
what's that?
because I'm on the fence.
You're on the
I said,
fence.
you guys are making it tough because I'm on the fence.
Well, this isn't an easy one. I mean, it really isn't an easy one. Partially because the original designation is kind of, I don't know. It's really tough because it isn't hard and fast, clear cut designation. I mean, so often you have a historic home that's been nominated to be put on the historic register and it's clear cut historic and you can back it up with historic figures and all that stuff. But here we have this industry with buildings that don't even look historic. They've been modified some, and a house that's off to the side that was built later on, and it is confusing. And then I'm still kind of hung up on the actual verbal, not verbal, literal writing of the ordinance itself. I just have, if I were a lawyer, I'd have a problem with that. So, but
Yeah. Well, it's clear the owner is wanting this to be closer to a Craftsman, which is making me think, they could give it another try. But I also don't disagree with the staff report in that, they're trying here, and it's not a horrible attempt. At least the changes, the first one was, but the second one's getting much better. So I don't know if my attempt to help the owner is getting in the way here. And so that's kind of where I'm on the fence a little bit. So
yeah. Well, Paul, did you were
Well,
making.
Rick has got his hand up first.
Who? Oh, Rick, sorry.
Yeah, I'm curious, is there a way to conditionally approve the plan with the amendments of what we said of the rail, of the dormer, and that way we can kind of smooth both of the former motions together.
After we vote on Megan's, you could definitely make a motion to that effect, Rick.
Okay.
I get, that would be, I think that we've got an opportunity, and I think we got a designer who knows the area. And I think we have an opportunity to see movement and have something significantly better and in design. And that's what I'm hoping for. And this is the reason why I would vote no, just because I think we have an opportunity to show that we care about history and how we project it for people to see. And I think having a modern design the way it is does not accomplish that. And I just feel like that there's an opportunity here if we just give them a chance to come back in 30 days or whatever it is and say, okay, I think there'd be a 99% chance that everything would be run through, period. But what we'll do is hopefully get the type of changes that will make it look more in period and not like an ultra modern house. And I think that detracts.
Fine. Rick has something to say, but I do also.
I was just going to say, I was just curious what the timetable is for the owner.
They were hoping to be weathered in by October, but that's not feasible at all.
Okay,
I just want to address to what Paul said, and just, I don't know, maybe I don't understand our entire role on this board, but I'm reading the proposal as it's written, and it says the applicant is proposing to replace existing non-historic home with a new, it's worded craftsman style home in the same location. So I read that as, I don't see the historic, this board having any say on what the design of the home is, because it's a non-historic home adjacent to a historic property, which a Reading vat was just an open tank that they soaked flax in. So the fact that there's a roof on that tank already means that it's not a historic site, that you're not seeing the full tank, and it's adjacent to, we're not taking away from that designated site for the flax factory. So I appreciate architecture. You all know I'm a big fan and very passionate about history, but I just don't see that this proposal we really, as this board, have any say on what the landowner wants to do with the home style. We're really just determining, does it detract from the historic site or add to it? But I don't read that we really have any say on the design. If they want to build a craftsman adjacent style, it improves the look of the roadside property, because otherwise the current structure is a falling down home. So that's where I'm coming from, this nitpicking on if the windows are historically accurate or what the railing is made of. It is a new construction on a non-historic site. It's not really changing anything there, but approving curb appeal. The historic designation is not being affected or touched with this proposal.
It is one thing I would correct. I believe this is a historic site. The house may not, the property is a historic site.
It's a historic landmark specific to the Reading tank, not a site. If you look at
the whole boundary, the whole boundary of the property that this house is going on is a historic site.
It's a historic landmark within a historic corridor. So the historic corridor, do I have that correct, Joy? It's a historic corridor for that area. But if you look at the site plan and you read the original survey, it's specific to the flax production. It's not the whole property boundary. It's EFU land with a historic landmark on the EFU.
I just had this conversation earlier today about something that will likely not come to you because it's just maintenance. But this whole area is the complex of the historic Lone Elder Flax plant.
Okay.
It included 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different properties, maybe 6 different properties. 3 of them are now under a historic landmark zoning overlay. The way that the county has designated historic landmarks is to designate the entire property. And so, yes, this entire property is a historic landmark. And within that, there's a non-contributing house that was not from the historical significant period. And that non-contributing house that was not considered historic or contributing to the historic period of the Lone Elder Flax plant is being proposed for replacement. So Megan is correct, and so is Paul. And so that's where, yes, you have authority to make recommendations to make it more compatible, but you may not necessarily have the authority to make them redo the roof pitch. It's not going to be specific to a craftsman because the existing house is not a craftsman and is not contributing. So if you just let them keep the existing, or if the existing house was kept, would that be better? Like from a historic perspective? And so I would like you guys to consider Megan's motion and vote on it. And then we can discuss if you want to do something that's in between, like Rick, and Rick might make a motion.
Yeah, we need to get on with Megan's motion, which was to approve the application. And I don't think you added any contingencies to that, did you, Megan?
It was to approve the staff recommendations that show that criteria was met for the application.
And I seconded that motion, so it's time to vote on that. All those in favor of Megan's motion, raise your hand. I'm gonna vote in favor of it. Megan voted in favor of it. I see 2 hands. Oh, Pam decided to jump off the fence. I see 3.
I did, just because I gave my input to them. If the owner really is have some strict ideas, there's some changes they can make, but I never have necessarily disagreed with the staff report. So
I saw 3 hands in favor. May I see hands opposed? 1, 2, 3. Howard's raising his hand. Did I miss one or anything? No. 1, 2, 3. The motion is failed again.
Failed to get a majority.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I move that we conditionally approve the staff report with the condition that they make the adjustments that we talked about. And I can't list them off the top of my head, but the railing, the dormer,
window
treatments.
Oh,
So, and just list the things that we've talked about in there would be acceptable.
are you saying making conditions or recommendations?
Conditions.
Whatever will get this in the lap where he said, yeah, we agree with making those changes and let's move on with it.
Okay.
Is there
Do I hear a second to that motion? What? No second to that motion? I didn't hear anything.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded that the application be approved with recommendations to make certain changes to make it look more historic, to simplify the language a little bit. All
Thank
those in favor?
Well, can we
Wait, discussion.
discussion? Yes, please. This is the reason why I initially wanted a continuance. So all we do then is give them a chance to come back in an early possible moment with defined changes that we could all take a look at and not have something that's loose-ended, subjective. And subjective is everybody's opinion. And they come back with something hard. I just think that right now we have an opportunity to come back and give them a chance. To put a better foot forward, and then we step back and then say yay or nay with what he comes back with. And this is having something that's just loose-ended right now doesn't seem to me to be a winning recommendation coming from us, but without getting into more specifics. And I don't think that any of us are really ready to get into the specifics. And it is up to the designer to come up with something that we could look at and say yay or nay on. And right now, I would vote no on this and just say I would like to have a re-vote on just having a continuance and then bringing it back and with something that we can agree on and on all the points. Thank you.
And
So-
I just want to point out in the staff recommendations, there is a line that says the applicant is proposing to shield the home from view of Highway 175 using hedge maples. So the house won't be seen from the road once those mature. That adds to anybody's opinion on it.
Okay, good. Rick made a motion. Did I'm having a senior moment. Did we
I
have a
second.
You
I second it.
Show of hands, all those in favor of Rick's motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? I see 2. That motion has passed, Joey.
Okay, so the conditions I have heard are changing the railing from metal to wood. Adding craftsman style detail on the outside of the windows.
I thought the wording was recommendation, not condition.
You guys, I thought the wording was condition, like the approved with specific conditions that changes would be made.
The original motion was conditions.
And the conditions that I have heard discussed are changing the railing material,
Mhm.
adding window treatments that look like craftsman style
Window trim, yes.
window trim, and a shed dormer.
And eliminating that, the Ys, he'd agree to that.
The timber truss off the front.
Yeah, that which are.
That cover it?
Is that what everyone voted on?
I believe so. I'll say yes.
I thought they were recommendations, not conditions. So I guess 2 out of the 4 heard recommendations and the other 2 heard condition, 3 heard conditions.
Okay. So from a process standpoint, the Historic Review Board makes a recommendation to staff.
Yeah.
And staff makes the decision.
Correct.
And so I hear that 2 of you thought that they were recommendations and 2 of you thought they were conditions. And I will craft a staff decision, with a requirement of window treatments and changing the material for the railing, and a recommendation for a shed dormer and the removal of the peak. And that way there's 2 requirements and 2 recommendations.
Okay,
Sounds like a good compromise to me.
Okay. And that will be issued once the Department of State Lands has had their 30 days to comment on the project.
okay then.
The next order of business is the Goal 5 cultural areas rulemaking. And I was not intending to make a presentation tonight, but as we were waiting for everyone to attend, some members started talking about archaeological resources. And so I have decided to go ahead and give a quick presentation. It shouldn't be very long. It's just a high-level review of what's taking place. And then you guys can choose to attend the hearing, or you can let me know if you want to make official comments at your October meeting. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. So DLCD is in the process of rulemaking. The way that Oregon land use works is there's Oregon revised statutes that are the law, and then DLCD comes in with rulemaking that provides guidance to local jurisdictions on how to implement the law. And the statewide planning goal number 5 is one of the broadest statewide planning goals, and it covers wildlife habitat, historic places, and mining, among a number of other resources that are reviewed and protected through statewide planning goal 5. The language in the statute includes cultural areas as one of those areas that can be protected by local governments. But there's never been clear rules that provide local governments with guidance on how to protect these cultural areas. There's never been a definition of what a cultural area is. And so Clackamas County does not have any programs specifically for cultural areas to implement that part of Goal 5. And part of that is because we adopted our Goal 5 program prior to a 1996 update. And so there are some things in our implementation project that, or implementation programs for Goal 5 that are under Division 16 instead of Division 23. That has no meaning to anyone except that it identifies specific programs and processes that we use that are different than other counties who are subject to a different set of regulations. In the rulemaking process, they have identified SHPO as the inventory of architectural resources as well as archaeological resources, because there is concern of having these sensitive areas ransacked and plundered for economic benefit. And so there's a balance that the rulemaking is trying to have, where there is an inventory and protection without an advertising of, hey, here's an archaeological site, come check it out. there's a balance there. One of the things that local governments do when they make programs to implement statewide planning goals is we do an easy analysis where we look at the economic, social, environmental, and energy consequences of a program. And so when we went through the Goal 5 process back in the 80s and 90s, we had an inventory of historic resources. One of them was the Barlow Trail. And that is the historic corridor that crosses Clackamas County. And you see a lot of well, you haven't recently seen projects, but the Barlow Trail has a buffer of 20 or 40 feet, depending on where it's located in the county. And any development within that 20 or 40 feet has to come before you, because the Barlow Trail is such a historic resource that is in our local inventory. We did an easy analysis back in the 1990s, and we now have a protection program that puts this buffer on the Barlow Trail. That is the type of program that the state is currently drafting rulemaking to support local governments doing similar things for cultural areas of significance. One of the pieces that was highlighted is the noticing of impactful land use decisions to tribes. And factoring in historic significant cultural areas into long-range planning decisions. And so there are things from this rulemaking that may require that Clackamas County change how we do some of our land use processes, both long range and current range. Current is these land use applications that you review. Long range is amendments and comprehensive plan policies that deal with cultural areas or historic areas. One of the key pieces of this rule is supporting awareness of existing laws and supporting awareness of these areas that are landscape features or other sites that may not have architectural significance, but has other significance culturally to Clackamas County's history and people. And so the draft rule has a hearing later this month, and they will be taking comments until October 16th. And those comments might be, it looks great, or maybe the process needs to be streamlined, or I don't know. I have not read the full rule yet. I've read the outline, but I'm looking forward to attending the hearing or hearing the recording of the hearing to ensure that I'm fully aware of what's going on. And then I would be reporting back to you in October and hearing if any of you attended the hearing and what your thoughts are as well. So the question I have for you, and you don't necessarily have to answer this tonight, but if you have an opportunity to do a search on Goal 5 rulemaking, Oregon, cultural areas, you'll find the website, and I can send out the website to you all. And if you want to attend the hearing, it's on the 27th of September.
Is it a Zoom?
They had both an in-person, but I believe there is also a Zoom option. I'm gonna,
And
bring
where
up-
would this be, in Salem?
the in-person is in Salem, yes. State law requires that there be a electronic option for public hearings.
I got a email from him today. And yeah, there is a Zoom link to it.
Yes, I'm gonna put it in the, oh dear. The Zoom meeting it requires a meeting ID.
You have to register.
I'll send you this document that is the notice of the proposed rulemaking. And it has the link and the details for the rules. And it sounds like, Rick, have you registered?
I just got it today, so I haven't gone through to look at it yet.
Okay,
And you sent us the link in your August 20th email about this meeting also.
fantastic. August, was a little bit unusual for me, so with my grandmother passing, so
Oh.
I appreciated your flexibility last month.
Problem.
So with that link that I sent in August, the email that I'll send tomorrow with the packet of information on the cultural areas. I will leave it to you all to think about over the next month. We will be meeting in October because there is the second Measure 49 claim property has home designs now. And so last month you considered one of the Measure 49 claim properties, the little 2-acre piece. So it's the property just to the south of it. And so it's another situation where it's new construction. And just like tonight, is it compatible? Is it detracting? Is it of a scale that's appropriate to be near one? Last month, you all determined that the scale was okay with it being so far away that they did a pretty good job or a well enough job. So I look forward to hearing your discussion next month. But one of the items on our agenda tonight is election of officers.
Well, goodbye, everybody. See you later.
Is that you wanting to stay the chair?
That's fine. I don't mind staying the chair. It's does not demand much of my time.
Do you need a motion for that?
What other
Yes.
positions are up, may I ask?
Well, there's chair and vice chair. So if there's a meeting that the chair can't attend, the vice chair steps in and manages the meeting.
Do we have a current vice chair?
The election of officers took place when there were 3 people on the Historic Review Board meeting or Historic Review Board.
Yeah,
So I don't think Paul or Howard volunteered to be the vice chair, but you Chair Schmier, you have been at every meeting, so I haven't had to call up the vice chair.
yeah. Well, Rick, you can make a motion that Schmier be the chair again, and we can vote on that. And then if somebody wants to come forward to be a vice chair, it's really nothing to it, so.
Michael, you're assuming he wants to nominate you. What if he wants to nominate
I thought
himself?
I heard him say he did.
I so move to nominate Michael
Oh,
as the chair.
is there a second to that motion? Yeah, I saw a hand.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, Schmier's stuck with it. And is there anybody that wants to be the vice chair? You've heard what I do, which is almost nothing. So the vice chair would only have to do that if I wasn't around. Rick, you want to be vice chair, don't you?
No, but I'd like to make a motion to have Megan as the vice chair.
Megan, are you smiling or shaking your head?
Is there a quota how many boards I can have a position on? My dance card is kind of full.
I think it's 50.
Okay.
That way you'll really be up to speed on everything.
Thanks, Rick.
Sounds like she already is.
I think I saw a motion that Megan be vice chair is
I second it.
okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Congratulations, Megan.
Thank you so much.
If you're lucky, I won't ever be absent, so we'll see what happens.
I'm going to hold you to that. But happy to be a backup. You leave
Okay.
big shoes to fill, though.
There's nothing to it, really. Anything else there, Joy? Okay, then. Our next meeting is the second Thursday in October, which is
October 8th.
10th,
Oh. Yep.
October 10th at 7 o'clock. Be there, be square.
Hey, Michael, Brennan
Yeah.
would like to say something, I think.
Okay.
As I work my way through these changes on the design, is it okay for me to reach out to, say, Paul or whoever else had input on the design changes, just to kind of get some feedback as I work my way through them?
I would be very happy to help at any time, but it's really the way we approved it. Joy is the final arbitrator,
Okay, yeah, that's understood, yes.
but I would help contribute if you have any questions.
Is that against any official rule if I reached out in between and just had some discussions with you about the design?
Pam, do you also want to be involved or? No? Okay. You're muted, so I can't, I just see your head shaking. Brennan, I will send you Paul's email. Pam,
Okay,
do you want to
I'm
be
sorry, I
involved?
was muted. I'm happy to help in whatever way I can, but I'm also, if Paul wants to help, I'm happy to let him do it. I'm a little busy at work right this minute, so.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
Well, if there's nothing else, I will thank all of you and make a motion that we adjourn the meeting. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
I saw two people second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye,
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody. I know
thank you.
This
Thank
is
you.
a tough,
Michael.
this is a tough one, and I thank you all.
Bye.
thank you.
All right.